Welcome back to the drawing table, where we have chill and casual conversations about art and, of course, about creating it as well. I am your only host for today, and I am Ken Darmadi. And as you can see, I am soloing today's episode, and that's because Jourdan is going to industry workshops in London, along with his whole studio, Atom Hawk. If you guys happen to be there, say hi to him. We'll be just chatting to people and watching the demos over there, I guess. Hi Nick, and hi hello to my wife. And yes, I'm soloing the dungeon. Thanks for joining. Thanks for joining, Nick. Yeah, I was talking about industry workshops. Jourdan will be there. And for today's episode, it will be a chill session, and I'll be mostly doing my own personal work. I have this idea in mind about like a fantasy interior that's with the setting of a bird world. I'll show you some of the references later, but that's the gist of it. But today's episode will be very flexible, and I hope you guys can join in on the chat, ask me questions, and if you guys want me to do some demos, feel free to ask that in the chat. For example, if you guys want me to show how to or maybe like lighting basics or form rendering basics, things like that, feel free to ask me in the chat and I'll show it on screen. So without further ado, let's start this session, and also it will be followed by I guess a Q&A session for a brief while, and then we're gonna end the episode with art of the week as usual. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen now. I've done this quite a while back, since July. You can see the file name here. Wait, not July, that's June. So yeah, I had this idea for a while now. And if you look at the mind map, you can, I think you can probably visualize what I want to create with this image. Hey Xylin, welcome to the stream. It's good to see you again. I was just going through the mind map and also the references. But some of the keywords are corrupt, pain, control, and radiant. And I want the image to be like a room where the council of bird people, a council where they control the population, things like that. So I want the room to be quite sterile in a way, kind of cold compared to what's going on outside, which I want to be slightly warmer, just playing with the contrast like that. And it's a bit inspired by the event that happened back in my country, in Indonesia. It's about like corrupt governments and like the population that's trying to survive and struggling. For the references, I want to have the details of the environment or the interior to be a bit more abstract and inspired by bird-like features or flight, things inspired by flight, maybe even skeleton-like structures. And some of the references are things like I think this is like a plane turbine or plane engine, and I think this is like a braided carbon fiber wire, I forgot. And then this is like a solar panel for a skyscraper that can open and close. So I think from the references alone, you can kind of already see what I want to design with the interior. and these two are the mood and feel that I want to get from the painting. And I want the scene to be a bit backlit, maybe like 3/4 from the side, from the back, sorry. And yeah, these are the references. So, and I want the scene to be brightly lit, but in a way that makes it a bit uncomfortable instead of warm and inviting. Because usually when it's a bright sky, sunny day, the usual mood is something more cheerful and happy. But I want to try to do something different where outside it's bright, but the mood is like cold and uninviting. So hopefully I can succeed, because this seems like a very difficult task to accomplish. But and hello Errol, it's really good to see you here. How are you guys doing, by the way? This is my first time soloing the podcast, so I'm really sorry if I missed some questions or the chat. Let's start with the design sketching. No, Jourdan is at Industry Workshop in London. Ton of amazing artists gathering at Lightbox. It's kind of crazy. There are 3 events happening all around the world right now, like art events. So one is Lightbox, I think it's just called Lightbox. It's in Pasadena in California, LA. And then another one is Industry Workshop's Demo Day in London. And then it's more of like a market, but there's also Comifuro, Comic Frontier in Jakarta. So 3 big events. And yeah, let's start with designing some of the ideas I have in mind. So while I was in the shower just now, interestingly, I had this idea for a shape of the interior. I'm gonna keep it quite rough and more organic. This will be like the entrance or something. Sponsored by Ara Studio. Thank you so much for mentioning that. And thanks for coming, Adi. Yeah, fun fact, I just opened a studio, an outsourcing studio called Ara Studio. And the spelling is ARRAH, and then studio. You can probably Google it and find it. But yeah, hopefully the venture goes well. So I want the interior to be shaped like a bird's skull, something like that. I want this kind of pointy beak as a platform for the interior, maybe as a step, and then where then someone from the population can enter to appeal or ask for something to the council, and then they'll get trialed here, maybe. And then in my idea, I have 5 seats on the council. So maybe these are the location of the seats, or maybe I think I should have the interior a bit bigger, because I want some backlighting, which would happen if I put some windows at the back. Hire you. Well, if there are suitable projects, then of course. Because right now, a lot of the projects I can handle it by myself. So if there's some big projects going on, I'll expand accordingly. So I want the windows to be here, like it shines at this place here, while the console will be backlit, so it will be quite menacing for the person standing here, because they can't see the console very well, but the harsh lighting will make it feel like a judgment is going to be passed on to the person here. Kind of like it a lot, actually. I might just go with it. Probably have to design the seat and this platform here as well, and also I want this kind of rib cage like structure as a flying buttress inside of the interior. I'm not sure if it makes sense, but those flying buttresses on like Gothic architectures look like rib cage, and in stretching it a bit, they kind of look like wings. And Errol has a question. Oh, and if you guys notice, I don't have the chat showing up on the stream anymore, because I had some issues with live stream, and that's the reason why this episode was delayed. So I'll have to read the question manually. So Errol is asking, do you have any specific mindset in portfolio building beyond doing designs? Is there any specific subject matter you're more leaning towards, or you try to explore as many subject matters as possible, but with concept design approach instead of doing one-shot illustrations or whatnot? It depends on what you want to do, and in my case, I want to do more concept design instead of illustrations. That's why a lot of my so-called illustration pieces as well, they are accompanied by design sketches or mind map. So I want the idea behind that is for the employees or employers to be able to see how I design things, or how my mind works when designing things, when designing to a brief. If you're doing something or if you're aiming to be an illustrator, then I think it doesn't really matter as much, because in the end people will just look at how well you render, how good you control your values, and also lighting. So it really depends on your end goal in a way. If you're leaning more towards concept design, then make sure that what's in your portfolio supports but make sure that when someone sees your portfolio, they can see how you think and how you design things. So I think that's the major difference between concept design portfolio and an illustration portfolio. And a lot of concept portfolio, they at least for the big, not beginners, but maybe less for the veterans, but for people who are just starting out, or even mid-level artists, they'll show some production work like concept sheets. Can probably show, I think that's a really good, I linked it on the chat. It's the ArtStation 2 Danny Gardner, and you can see it's really good portfolio for concept design, because it's a lot of production work, but he also adds it with his personal flair by showing personal work and his own style. And I think it's really important to show both, because personal work shows how creative you are and your vision, but production work shows that you can follow direction from projects, from briefs. Danny Gardner, I linked it on the chat. Danny Gardner. And about specific subject matter, really depends on what you want to do. If you want to be a character concept artist, then of course you should do more character sheets, turnarounds, maybe costume options or skin options. I think trying to do skins is a good way to show that you're capable of doing something in a studio style, and showing that you can work based on an existing art direction, which could lead to potential clients, because there's a lot of games that needs to produce contents and skins all the time, like Fortnite, even Apex Legends, like other games like Dota, League of Legends. They really need a lot of content for the skins of the heroes. But if you want to do more environment, which is what I want to do, then I just focus on creating environment designs, exploring different ideas, and yeah, that's mostly it. Exploring different ideas, unique, interesting environments to include in my portfolio, which I can only do on my personal work. I really want having the flying buttress to be like wings in motion, but snapshotted between every frame or every second frame or something. So it's this is the first flying buttress, and then the second one is like a wing halfway through the motion of flapping. I think that would be really cool. Xylin asks, what's the most important daily activity for a concept artist practice? Daily activity. That's kind of tough because I don't really have one except for doing sketches every day, just exploring different ideas, exploring different designs, and I think in the beginning, if you want to be a concept artist, you have to understand the basics. So the typical answer will be start with the fundamentals, learn the fundamentals, do studies, value studies, perspective studies, things like that. But I think once you kind of figure out what the fundamentals are and you know how to design without having to struggle with the fundamentals, then you can start doing activities such as design sketching. So you're exploring different designs, you're exploring different ideas for yourself. I think that's a good practice. And hello Samuel, thanks for joining. So Yogi added to my comment about the portfolio. He's saying if you want to do environment, try to add more level design aspect. Like if you design apocalyptic overgrown city between Dying Light and Last of Us, which they both have different demands and all because gameplay is different. if you want to work in games. So I think what Yogi is saying is try to think of, for example, if you want to work for Uncharted, try to design a level that could be in Uncharted. So maybe it's like a cut content from Uncharted 4, for example, like possible setting or possible environment that could have been in the game but it's cut because of time constraints, things like that. I think this would be cool to have that circle, quite common on Gothic architectures. I forgot what they're called. There's a specific name for this part here. I like this approach, but it's quite too heavy on the middle. It's as if this person in the center has all the power and all the other four are just there to help him, which I don't really want. I want all 5 of them to have equal power. Let's try something else. This is super rough, by the way, and I would typically work like this just to get the ideas down quickly, and then once I kind of have the idea, then I'll just turn down the opacity, start on a new layer, and then start detailing, for example, the chair, things like that. But we're not done yet, so let's continue. Then Errol says, your Nibelheim painting is super solid yet painterly. How do you approach that painting? Love it a ton. Firstly, thank you so much. I quite enjoy that painting as well. One, because it's in a style that's quite freeing for me, because I used to do images that are more realistic, uses a lot of photos, photo bashing. But one day I just wanted to try to do something that's a bit more hands-on with the image creation. So it's very manual labor, doing all the shapes, the shadows, things like that. I think the tip that I can give about doing a painting like that is to simplify a lot of the details. So for example, with a sphere like this, with just 2 tones, you can, okay, maybe three tones. With just 3 tones, you can tell that it's being lit in this direction. And then once you get that basic understanding, or once you let the viewer understand that shape and the form, you can start adding details like value changes, variations, slight color adjustments, things to make the painting a bit more vibrant, so it's not so it doesn't look too flat, but still keeping the overall value grouping of the image. So once you zoom out, like if you zoom out, you can still see that the shape and the definition of the light works. But if you zoom in, it's all a bit scribbly, which doesn't really matter, because at the end mostly people see the overall instead of scrutinizing the details. But it's still important to add a bit more detail to the focal point because that's where people are gonna look at the longest. So I hope that helps explain how I do it. Try to look at this guy. I was really inspired by his work for Life is Strange, so I tried to do some studies of his some of his paintings, and it really helped a ton. That's also the style that I found really fun to do. I need to have some space between the chair and the back wall because put a bit of distance and atmosphere so that they can be a bit more properly backlit by the light. And this brief is so tough. I have no idea. The flying buttress is big. Will make it difficult for the windows to be to shine through because it's gonna get blocked. I don't know how that can be solved. Look at the keywords again. Wilt, flow, skeletal, puppet. Halo, glow, circular, wings, fan, curve, vents, wind. Yeah, I want some water features. Remember wanting to have some water flowing inside the interior itself. That would be really cool. Because if you imagine this being in a game, it helps create some sort of motion inside an interior. Because typically interiors are a bit more static in a way, so having the stream that moves, it will help just add a bit more life to it. So one thing to consider when making design is how the elements fit together as a design language. And what I mean by that is, for example, I have the design language in this one set to be more geometrical than it would generally be a good idea to have everything else kind of geometric, because it will help the viewer to think that it's built by the same architect, by the same builder, because it has the same shape language. If it's too different, that it will kind of clash a lot, probably. Really like that. It's kind of geometrical. Maybe I can use that directly here. Doesn't look too much like bird wings. Looks a bit more insect-like, but I think that's fine. I think for the window, it can be shaped like a feather somehow. So the shapes should all be very sharp. Maybe it would be a good idea to have some shape pointing towards the place where the person is gonna get trialed. So it really pushes the idea that you don't have, this person won't have any power here. All the power is just gonna be pointed towards judging him or her or it, since it's a bird. Bird will. That would be cool. Hello, Evan. Thanks for joining. Hey, good. It's good that you catch it. But I've only just started sketching 3 sketches, and it's taking a while because, as usual, drawing while talking is not easy. It's like splitting my brain into 2 and doing 2 tasks at the same time. I want the pillars to be fanning out like this fan here. Maybe it's a bit too much, but won't know until we try it. And again, if you guys have any question, or if you guys want me to show a demo of anything, feel free to post that in the chat. I'll do my best to explain it with our limited time. I like this idea of like needles and the patterns pointing towards this spot, but it's getting a bit too noisy. But maybe because it's all in lines right now. If I play with the values and color correctly, it could work. Could work on a subconscious level. Just make it really subtle. The design is all art deco. Really love the setting of the game. It's like underwater, very creepy. Usually after this stage, I'll clean up some of the sketches and then go to 3D, block out the space, and also play around with the lighting, because that will help a ton with the final image. It's a bit too new. I like this shape. I wonder that can be like a pillar going up on the side. It's gonna look a bit elven, like a typical swirly, curvy elven architecture from fantasy IPs, but that's fine. Just here to have some fun with this design. And oh, you finished BioShock Infinite. Yeah, I think it's good, but not as good as the original BioShock. The twist was it's mind blowing, but I like the twist with the original better. And spoilers for those who have not played BioShock. Question from Samuel from Cindy. So you like mixing geometric shapes plus organic shapes. Have you ever gotten inspired by the classic Roman Empire style? Yes. Actually, the game that I worked on that was released last month was heavily inspired by Roman architecture. It's kind of like taking Roman architecture and then putting some fantastical elements into it. I think Roman architectures, like Roman Greek with the pillars, it's very good for inspiration. If say I want to make something look more grand because these pillars that stand tall makes the space feel tall and big, as if it's reaching for the sky, and that helps with the feeling of creating something maybe more holly or grand. Hey Harrison, it's good to see you here. Right now I'm just designing some interior for this world that I'm creating, consisting of Birdman. How are you doing, Harrison? Congrats for winning second place on the environment design, the challenge on ArtStation. Now that I think about it, what I don't like about this pointy design is it will be difficult for the person to go up the stairs, and if a player enters the room and then they see this like pointy stairs, they probably won't go up towards it. They will go sideways and then up, which might break the flow of the game. What do you study nowadays? Like, what kind of daily studies do you do nowadays? Because one of the questions I had just now was about from Xylin. he or she was asking, what's the most important daily activity for a concept artist practice? So maybe you can help answer that question too, Harrison. Like, what do you study nowadays? Yeah, some kind of transition. But I like the shape. Just like if I had some transition, I'm not sure. Harrison says, these days I'm going back to basic color studies from films and photos. Why I'm doing this is to improve my values and colors. Yes, color studies are really good to do. And I think it's especially helpful once you've done several studies of the same mood and color. You try to do an image based on the knowledge that you've learned through the studies, because only through doing it yourself then you can start to actually absorb the idea behind the studies. Harrison added, I think for a concept artist, always going back to fundamentals is essential. Yes, I agree, always applying studies is key. And I agree with that somewhat, but there's also one other opinion that I know from my mentor, and he never did any sort of master studies or color studies or anything like that. What he really focused on is doing design studies, making new portfolio pieces every time with different designs, just testing out different ideas. Basically all he did was just design practice and developing the ideas and workflow that he had. So that's another approach. It really depends on what kind of project that you want to achieve, that you want to get in the end as well. Because all of his stuff is mostly very design heavy, photo bash heavy, and a lot of like archviz or like spaceships. Very realistic. Harrison also added, I'll be going to do architectural studies before the year rounds out though, and I need that in my life now. I've never done any of that. I should really do that. Can you explain that further? Yeah, so I was actually quite curious about how he did his studies, and the mentor that I mentioned is Jan Urschel. So I had a call with him once, and I was asked, this was not in the call, but I asked him once about how he did his studies, if he ever done master studies, things like that. And he said no, he thinks it's not useful for him because he's more of a designer, so he tries to focus more on the design part itself. And like I said, what he did was focus on testing out different ideas. And for example, I did this one. So one exercise that I tried is taking basic objects and then turning them into something else. For example, this AC remote here. Oh, you can't see it, damn it. Yes, this AC remote here could be a spaceship. Like if you look at the back, you can take some ideas from the shape, some inspiration. For example, this hole here can be a location where the guns are located, and like this, like the IR sensor or blaster is where the cockpit could be, or like the rocket could be placed. And then like if you open this up, like basically taking basic objects and then turning them into something else. That's one practice that I know of, which you can try. So it's just practicing different workflows, different methods of generating ideas, things like that. So it's not only just simple photo studies, not just value studies or master studies, but it's more about exploring how you generate new and more interesting ideas, and then putting them into an image that could be produced in a movie or a game or any project, really. What's the Yogi said? I think it's just like a question. What's the difference between concept artist and concept designer? I'm not even sure if concept artist and designer are like two different job titles. Pretty sure they're the same, just people use them interchangeably, but I feel like the right term should be the concept designer, because we don't really do art. You're designing stuff that has a purpose, while art feels like it implies that what you're doing is a bit more based on feelings instead of based on specific needs of the project. Sounds like what Do Cheng said here. Yes. That's one of the practice that he also mentioned, just taking objects and then turning them into something else. Man, all this talk is making me just drawing scribbles. But it's fine. This is fun. It's really fun to talk about this stuff, because I don't usually talk about this stuff to anyone else, especially here, because unfortunately there's not a lot of concept artists or designer in Indonesia. But yeah, that's one way to practice. And then I think another way that you can try is this is a method that I learned in FZD. So for example, if I take this group here and then darken, and then darken. If I take this group and then flip it horizontally, and I can start to create interesting shapes or ideas for something. Like, that could be a cool spaceship, that could be a cool motif for your environment, or even that looks really cool for a character. Like the face is half broken, and then the other one is like made of glass. It's like it's peeling off and revealing the glass inside. It's like, could be a really cool robot idea. Like that could also look like some kind of throne filled with cables. That could be an idea for an alien. so many cool shapes that you can achieve by doing this technique. See, even that already looks like a villain from Kamen Rider. If you just start, I'll go off topic, not off topic, off topic from the main sketch a bit. If you start painting on top of this, it already looks like a villain. See that? This is the lips. This is the nose. Look, it's a really cool character already. Oh man, that's pretty much done. The design's pretty much done like this. Like if you just add a bit of light, lighting direction, it's pretty much done. This is really cool. What a cool coincidence. Happy accident. Just add some material breakdowns, maybe add some specular or really strong highlight somewhere. Sorry for going off the rails here, but this is really fun to do. It's been a while since I've done any characters. yeah, yeah, let's just call this one done. Not spend too much time on this. There we go. Yeah. And Samuel asked, and Samuel is a really good friend of mine, and he's asking, heard you announcing a new studio, any story beyond that you can share with us? Yes, of course. I just wanted to create a studio so I can take more work and hire more people. And one of the intents is to bring bigger projects to the industry in Indonesia, because I think the amount and the level of concept artists here is not a lot of them are international level yet, and most of the artists here are illustrators. So I kind of want to bring more exposure to this other side of the industry. One of the steps that I want to take first is by launching the studio, then hopefully getting more bigger international clients that I can give back or hire freelancers, mostly from Indonesia, hopefully, to help me do the projects. So I'll be art directing and managing the artist. Hopefully by doing that, they can learn from the projects. And advice for upcoming Indonesian artists: don't do too many fan arts. Make your own content, design your own ideas, make your own IPs, and as always, focus on the fundamentals. I think this is too complex. I want the interior to be just very simple and to the point. Errol says, I'm actually aiming towards being a concept artist in the film industry, which I think is a bit different from being a concept artist in games. Yeah, I agree. Why don't you try applying for a job at Caravan Studio, since they're doing a lot of local movie projects like the Bumi Langit cinematic universe. And I'm applying the suggestions you told in my personal projects, hopefully to finish them soon. One advice that I can give is to keep your project small. Maybe even just create, maybe the end goal is to just create one image that looks good. That's it. Don't have to make several successive images, because from my experience, used to try to plan out big projects, flesh out the details of the world before going into the sketching, the designs, and then the final image. But that tends to not work out for me, because during the process I just tend to freeze out, because the scale of the project is too daunting for me. So one of the things that I try to do to alleviate the problem is by making the end goal just one image, like one or two images. So keep the end goal very, very small and focus on the sketching and then going directly to the finish. Don't spend too much time on planning the mind map, planning the world, the whatever it is. Just go straight to do the dirty work. It's better that you learn through doing many projects instead of trying to do one project until it's perfect. Samuel says, will you do any workshops in Indonesia to help artists be more original? I want to, but maybe in the next year I'll try to focus more on the studio first, and then afterwards we'll see how it goes. Because I do want to have some sort of school where I teach people, aspiring artists or designers, to be more original. Because one of the sad things here, in a way, is that when I go to cons like Comic-Con, PopCon, a lot of what they sell is fan arts, and that's just a bit sad for me. I don't mind if the fan art is done in a very different style, or maybe like a different approach to the IP, but a lot of them is just direct. It's like a very direct fan art, which, not saying that it's a bad thing if you're an illustrator, but if you want to be a concept artist, try to refrain from doing straight illustrations from existing IPs. Try to change the skin, for example. Try to design something else that could fit inside the universe, things like that. And Zalin says, yeah, I have this problem. Anything that takes longer than a day is daunting. Then Errol says, exactly, I bumped into the same problem as well. I switched strategy directly. Yes, if something doesn't work for you, change it. Change the strategy, change how you approach the problem. Find new ways of solving the issue. And then Xylin says, I love making fan art of games that don't have graphics like old RPGs. Imagine what the characters would look like. Yes, that's actually a really good exercise. It's kind of the same idea with the Ragnarok Online redesign that I did last time. Like taking really old games and then making a modern version of them. And you can also do the same thing with books. If you read a novel, maybe try to visualize what a paragraph of the book looks like, what the scene is like if it's made into a movie or a game. Any small practice artists can do to change the mindset. I think they can start by doing the design practice that I talked about earlier, like taking ordinary objects and then turning them into something else. That's one way to practice. I'm not catching anything, so many questions, but it's good to see you guys chatting in and asking me questions. Then Yogi asked, where do you see Ara Studio in 5 years? Any specific goals besides being the bridge from international industry to our country? Maybe like working on original IP on company scale. Yes. 5 years. I really want to have big projects already in the belt of the credits of the studio, because I think that's the only way to help. Well, maybe not the only way, but one of the only way I know that can help elevate the industry here. So that's definitely one of the goals. It is to get bigger projects, bring them here, and hiring local artists to make sure that they're trained and prepared for the international quality standards. And other specific goals, that's a really tough question. I don't really have any other specific goals yet. I'm kind of doing the studio as I go along. Yeah, I'm just kind of winging it in a way with that one specific goal in mind. Just I want to be able to take more work, and then hiring local artists. Yeah. When I talk about it this way, it makes it feel like I didn't plan anything for the studio. That's kind of sad. But hey, I'll make it work. And then Evan Sanata, the actors and actresses in Game of Thrones are kind of far away from how I imagined them when reading the book. Might going to visualize them according to the book someday. Yes, please do that. I'll be waiting. Maybe even make that your next project. And Samuel asks, do you think Indonesian artists are good enough to make the step up now? I think so. I think there's a ton of untapped potential with the artists here, and all they need is just some guidance and some real world projects. And it's especially more true for the illustrators, because there are a lot of amazing illustrators from Indonesia. It's just that being a concept artist, even the role of a concept artist is not widely known here yet. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's how I perceive it and how I've experienced things here. We'll wrap this up soon. I really like the simplicity of this one. Let's try to fix that. Fix this one. So, question from Samuel: what concept or pattern do you think is more special to Indonesia compared to the world? What exactly do you mean by concept or pattern? They do a lot of characters. A lot of character artists and designers here, and I don't mind people designing characters, but I just wish there's more environment designers out there. I feel like people just want to create the main characters. They want to create the personalities and stuff. But I think environments are just as important as the characters. So it's something that I wish that more people here do. But that's something kind of negative. If there's something more positive, is that a lot of the artists here, in a way, they're more willing to build a network with other people. I think they have a sense of entrepreneurship and sense of I feel like the sense of community here is quite strong based on my experience. But to be fair, I've never worked outside of here, so I don't really know. A lot of the people here are very friendly, so that's a huge plus for the industry in Indonesia. Yogi said, well, I wish there are more props concept artists too. Perhaps it's too boring. Yeah, I wish there's more people doing other things. It feels like if you go to Comic-Con, all these conventions, all people sell is just characters, and just wish there's something more, something else. And Evan says, do you think it's because the two biggest studios in Indonesia are mostly focused in illustrations and the works they've done off to the internet are polished illustrations instead of concepts? So that might influence the local artist's point of view to art in the industry. And now that you mention it, I completely agree, which is why I created my studio, because I want to bring light to what the role and the job of concept artist is to the industry here. And of course, a disclaimer, all of what I said is just my opinion, so it might not be how things work. It might not be how things actually work here. It's just from what I observe and experience from living and working here, and also building a community here. After this, I'll probably just build some assets in 3D and then kit bash how the interior might look. Just a brief explanation of what I mean is I'll probably model some of the elements here, like this shape, and then this shape and this shape, and then build the interior based on those shapes. And I've done this quite a lot when designing in 3D, because it helps again, by reusing the same shapes, it helps sell the illusion that the architecture is built by the same guy. So I don't need to go too much into detail, because it will all be built in 3D anyway. And designing in 3D helps a lot in terms of understanding understanding the scale of the environment, especially true for interiors like this, because if it's just rough sketches like this, sometimes for me it's quite difficult to understand how the space might work when someone is, for example, standing here. This might be a bit too cramped for personal space of each of the console guys, and with 3D it will allow me to put a camera here to see how it might look from the perspective of this guy, so I can see how the space might function practically. think this will be even bigger, so that the two guys on the sides are able to face the person here directly. And if I want the water stream to be more organic or keep it geometric, I feel like it should be a little organic just to have some contrast. We'll see how it looks in 3D. Probably make it more simple so it's not too distracting, and just have like I think it's called the Corinthian pillar, the order. Yes, the Corinthian order, where it's full of full of like details on the top of the pillar. See, I'm adding some Roman influence because these pillars really make this place, it will help make this place feel taller. I want this room to be a lot taller actually. So if a player enters it, they won't be able to see the ceiling, or they have to look up to see the ceiling. So say this is like a third person game. At most what they're gonna be seeing is something like that. Then once they look up, you'll see what the ceiling is like. So I want it to be tall. As for the flying buttresses, I don't know if that's a good idea now because it might block the light that's gonna shine through from the outside. Maybe I'll just have some like a dome, like a dome shape here, and then like an inverted flying buttress, so it looks a bit more abstract and magical somewhat. So I also want some kind of curtain and veil. That could be a good idea. But yeah, it's been 1 hour and 45 minutes of me designing this idea. Let's look back on what I've created. It's not much because it's super tough to design something while also talking. Hope you don't mind the really bad sketches. Have some design variations. At first it's very simple, and then I start to play with the idea of having the flying buttresses in the shape of like snapshots of a wing in motion of flapping. And this is more geometric, which I'm gonna proceed forward with for the next stage. I'm gonna refine it a bit further and even possibly straying even further from this design, simplifying the details a lot more. And then this last one is a lot more organic and fantasy, which might work for some other project, but not this one. It's too magical. Okay, yep, that's all for the sketch. So we have a few more minutes. So let's dedicate this section 5 minutes. Let's dedicate 5 minutes for Q&A. If you guys have any questions or you want me to do some demos, post that in the chat. I'll try to do it live. Yeah, I don't know when I'll be able to finish it. Seems like such a design heavy piece. I want to make it look as good as it can be. So it might take a while. Take lots of tweaks here and there to make sure that this image works at the end. But yeah, Q&A session. I'll just wait for a few more minutes. If there's nothing else, then I'll proceed to Art of the Week as usual. Yogi says, just want to say thank you for the session today. No problem. Thank you so much for joining me. And yeah, I'm sorry if there's any like weird pauses or if I ramble on some certain topics, because doing this alone is quite difficult. Usually Jourdan did like 70% of the talking. Good practice for AMA. Yes. When I'm famous and rich, I'll be doing this a lot more often. Just answering questions for the fans. Okay. Let's move on to Art of the Week as usual. Let me bring this one up. Oops. Art of the Week. Okay, so Art of the Week. Art of the Week is the part of the podcast where we show artwork that have inspired or left an impression on us. And for this week, I have this illustration. Let me prepare the windows. Okay. This week I have this illustration. Oh, actually maybe this one would be a better image to show. There we go. High res. Yes. This is an illustration of the three gods from Yu-Gi-Oh! And I've read the manga, I don't know, many years ago. Really love the design of the gods. This illustration is created by 3 artists. And they are, I forgot to put up the link on the image, but one of them is J.S. Raphael. He's actually one of the featured guests from our first artist panel. And then the second artist is Narendra B. Adi. And the third artist who worked on this particular image is Denny Prakoso. So the 3 artists are Joshua Raphael, Denny Prakoso, and Narendra B. Adi. And what I really like about this piece is just the feel and the epicness of the three gods, and it's just so cool to see them rendered to such a high detail and high level. It really makes them feel real, and as if they're an actual being that's in this world. So oh yeah, and it's also really supported by that backlighting. Just makes the gods feel a lot more godly. And it's also such a nice atmosphere. Very dusty, but just makes it feel like it's in another realm. So cool. But yeah, I only have one image for this this week's art of the week, and again, link to the artist Denny Prakoso is the link is level 10. Hold on, let me put that up on the chat. Yes, please follow these three artists, really amazing illustrators from Indonesia. They've been producing some really nice work. Okay, with that said, alright, so thank you guys for watching this episode. I know it's been quite a long while, and probably got a bit tiring listening to me rambling for 2 hours. Really sorry for the delay earlier in the episode, earlier in the stream, because there's some problem with the platform that we typically use for streaming, so I had to find some other ways to be able to stream, and luckily I managed to find a way to stream on time. And so yeah, please follow the artist that's been featured on the art of the week. And yeah, thank you so much guys for joining, and if you find this episode helpful or entertaining, please share it with someone else that you think would find it helpful. And please follow us on Instagram and Facebook for updates on upcoming contents, on YouTube to watch our previous episodes, and of course on Twitch to catch future episodes live. And we also have a Facebook group for our community, which you can join through the link that's been posted in the chat. And with that said, thank you guys again, and see you all on the next podcast. And hopefully that will be with Jourdan as well, so it will be more complete. Okay, thanks guys. See you guys next week. In 2 weeks. Bye bye.